Hello everyone. So today we are going to look at a very interesting problem that we have today. The problem states that an earthling's weight on Mars is 37.8% of their weight on Earth. So we need to write a Python program that prompts the user to enter their weight on Earth and it prints their calculated Mars weight, right? So how we can approach this problem is first we need to know some basics. The basics are what is float, what is string, and what are the different types of data. So let me first tell you and introduce you to the different types of the data. So data types. The hashtag that I am using here is to just make it not work, that is commenting out in Python, and it is just for giving the reader an instruction. It does not execute, it is not an executable code. So data types, first one, right. Let me just comment this one out as well. It is a string. A string is a sequence of words, sequence of letters, and it is always in the double quotes. Double quote string, or a very classic example that you may know is double quote hello world. So another type of data is integer. So any numerical value that is not in decimal can be set to be integer. Example 1, 2, -1, 4, 7 or anything. Then the third data type we have is float, which is closely related to integer. You will know why. Float is any value in decimal, for example 1.0 or 3.14 or 2.71. These are relatively familiar numbers, I believe, pi and e. Then the fourth type is the Boolean. This is the fourth type. So Boolean is something that takes in an argument and returns only two values, true or false. Okay. So here we see 37.8. What do you think, which type of data it is? Yes, it is correct that it is float. Okay, now we need to remember that an integer multiplied by an integer or an integer divided by an integer gives you float. Okay, and similarly you can do integer multiplied by a float or float divided by integer or integer divided by float. The answer will still be float, which is a decimal based answer. So we are clear with the data type part of the question. Now another concept that you may need to know is concatenation. Okay, so what concatenation does is it just, it's, for example, if I write, let me tell you with example. If I define a variable Variable is something, some value, it stores some value, and we put a string in it. As you know what a string is. So let's say we put the value here, say my name is, and we define another variable, say y, and we put it equal to my name Moksharth, and then when I say it print x plus y, let's say what output it returns. So my name is Moksharth, so is Moksharth is now here together. If I put a space in here, then it will show you a space. So yeah, this is what we call concatenation. It's like gluing the data together. So let me just comment it out. So now you know the different types of data and you know what concatenation is. So therefore we can move to the concept of function. The concept of function in Python is somewhat similar to what we have in mathematics. It's a specific block of code which takes an input and returns you an output. So let's see. This is an example of a function in mathematics. For example, fx is given to you to be x square, and if x takes the value 1, then what will be the value of fx? It will be square of 1, that is 1. And similarly, if x takes the value 2, the value of x squared will be 4. So the function in Python works in a very similar way. Say, let's first define a variable. Say name equals to input. We'll input some name, right? So input is also a function in here. It's a predefined function like print. Print is also a predefined function. The function which are predefined are already installed in the library of Python. So what is the thing that we are going to learn is how to define our own functions. So this input function usually takes the value of a string. So whenever I say input and say print name, so let's see, input is, so my name is say Mox, so it prints Mox. Let's say if I type 44.4, then yeah, it's returning 44.4, but the game here is that it is returning 44.4 as string. Example, if I write print name into 4, let's see what happens. So 44.37, and see, it just multiplied the string, it didn't multiply the number. 40.37, 44. It concatenated it 4 times. That's a game. So what if we put float in front of it? Float input. This is what we call typecasting. So let's say in this one, let it be name only. So let's see what happens. So now if we say 44.37, it will return 177.48. Now it's multiplying. So this is what we call typecasting, and whenever I do this, I can use input integer, int will be in front of it. Let me write it so you guys can understand better. Int is for the integer and float is for the float. right? And bool is for the boolean. And for string you don't need to write it, but if you want to, then string can be represented by str. Okay, so now you know the predefined functions. So let's see how can we define our own function. Use the thing def, and let's say we name our function hello. So hello takes a certain input and returns a certain output. So return, let's say hello plus name. So we have defined this function to return hello plus what we input as a name, right? Now we can say print hello, right? So let's see what it does. So name is Moksha. It returns hello Moksha. If I increase the space in here and then run it, it remains hello Moksha, right? So yeah, this is how the function works. It takes the name as the input and returns some output, putting the hello in front of it. So now we know what a function is, right? Let me comment it out. And how you can define the function, the basics of it. Functions can be really complex, but for our purpose and for the learning the basics, this is what you need to know. So now let's go back to the question. An earthling's weight on Mars is 37.8% of their weight on Earth. So we need to write a Python program that prompts the user to enter their weight on Earth and prints their calculated weight on Mars. I hope you are now able to get this point to some extent, right? So should I clear this off? I believe yes, because we will need to have question in front of us. So yeah, so let's start by defining a function, but before that the function should have something to take as input, right? So let's say our weight on Earth be a variable that takes input. Okay, that takes input. So what does variable mean? Variable, think of it as like a box that stores something. So variable is an empty box in which we put a value and store it. So input. Now I told you earlier that input takes only string values, but weight is a integer or a float. Let's say since we need to multiply it a lot or maybe divide it, so let's say take it as float. So we'll do typecasting. So weight on Earth is float input. Now let's define the function that returns the value of weight on Mars. Define weight on Mars, okay, and it takes something as input, and we define it. So let's see the logic here. That we see that weight on Earth weight on Mars, say Mars to make you understand better. Weight on Mars equals to weight on Earth into 0.378. Think how? Yeah, it's just the basic percentage. So right, it's basic percentage. So 100 kg is like, see, if it's 100, so it will be on, see, if weight on earth is 100, so on Mars, weight on earth and kg, let's say, so it will imply that in Mars it will be 100 into 37.8, that will be 37.8 kg. Usually mass is in Newton, but since we are not dealing with physics but rather just simple calculations, we are using kg in here, although we don't need to define anything like that. Let's go back to our function and say return 0.378 into weight on earth, right? Why 0.378? because we can say W, we can also say it like this: weight on Mars equals to weight on earth upon 100 into 37.8. It's this simple percentage calculation, nothing more. So we got to this logic, and now what we need to do is print weight on Mars. So now let's try to run this function. So weight on earth will take the input as float, and let's say the float is 80 kgs, so it returns 30.24 as our weight on Mars. So just to make things more clear, let's say, okay, input, we can write enter your weight on earth, just to make stuff more clear, and then it will take some value and then print weight on Mars. Okay, so yeah, your weight on Mars is and since this weight on Mars thing is basically a float value, so we need to typecast it again to concatenate it with string. So let's say str, and yeah, we close it. So this will print this. So let's run it now. Enter your weight on earth, let's say 80, your weight on Mars is 30.24. This is how you can solve problems like this. This is basics, and as we discussed the concepts today, all those concepts directly apply to this. Here you can see the concept of concatenation, here you can see the float data type, here you can see the variable concept of variable defining a function, and this is the basic logic of this problem. So this is how we solve questions like this, and I hope you understood this question. and you will be able to solve more problems like this. And keep enjoying learning the language. This is really interesting one, and I hope to see you in the next lecture. Thank you so much.